Hi, welcome back to the channel, Michelle, and today I want to talk about if we as the parent are the problem in homeschooling. So the idea for this video really came about after watching two mid-year homeschool update videos that were on YouTube. So the first video, the parent was talking about the curriculum that they were going through and reviewing what was working, what wasn't working. And when they were reviewing what wasn't working, I started to notice they were often saying it was working fine for their child, but they, as the parent, weren't excited about it. They couldn't find the motivation to do it, so they dropped it. And after the third time this parent had said this, the thought occurred to me, and it was like a light bulb moment. It's like, but this isn't about you. This is about their education. And then another thing happened where I was, again, watching an update video, and the parent was, and this is a parent who's homeschooled for years, had switched curriculum yet again, and their reasoning for switching curriculum was they had just suddenly realized that one of their children learned differently than the other. So they had been lumping these two children together for a lot of subjects and realized that wasn't working because they learned in different ways. And I was thinking, like, how can you homeschool for multiple years and just then realize your children learn differently or have different needs? And it occurred to me again that it's not about the child, that they're not really seeing the child you're teaching. And it kind of all came together that I think that one of the issues we're having in homeschooling is that a lot of parents are teaching to the child they perceive they have or want to have. And I do touch on this subject with my husband. I'll link up above. We just put a video out talking about if we're Christian or secular homeschoolers and labels and things like that in homeschooling. But we do touch on this, that the idea that children seem to be an extension of ourselves, and the parents are making it more of the education aspect, they're making it more about themselves, about passing on what their bias or belief system is, instead of teaching to that individual child. And one thing I think I'm really good at is seeing my children as individuals, not extensions of me. I don't want my children to grow up and be carbon copies of me. I don't want them to think and believe the exact things I do. I never want my children to hesitate to question what we're talking about, that they disagree with my viewpoint. I never want them to question that because, again, I'm not raising kids to think like me. I want to raise kids to think for themselves. And I think that, especially with the onslaught of social media, we're getting so many influences as parents. We're getting society telling us how to do things. We get social media, friends and families. We get all these voices telling us how we should be doing things. And I think that's definitely the truth in the homeschooling realm, if not more. I mean, as a parent, you get a ton of that, but as homeschooling, there's so many opinions of how you should be doing things that I think sometimes we lose sight of the children in front of us and the importance of their education, because like I've said, I don't think my children's education should be dependent on the parent. And what I mean by that is I think education is a right to every child, and a quality education, not a biased, super filtered down, hypercritical version of education. I think we need to provide many resources and perspectives to our children. And I think if our only goal is to produce people who are exactly like us, then we're not really reaching the point of what education is about. And I think about, because we do a lot of social justice units in our house, and I think that's one of the reasons I am so adamant about seeing my children as individuals, not just what I want them to be or hope they'll be, or being told by, social influences what they should be or what they should be learning, is that it's about the individual. But I think parents are taking this to a point where it's not about the individual child, but the individual parent. And there can be issues with that. I think about especially in history and social justice, talking about all these people who have fought for the right to an education, be it minority groups, women, have fought really hard for the right to receive an education. Why have they fought so hard? It's because with an education comes knowledge, and with knowledge comes power, the power to decide your future for yourself. And here's the thing about homeschooling. When you're done, say your kid's 17 or 18, you as the parent educator, not a lot's going to change for you. You know, you'll go on about your life, but your children will hopefully embark, you know, on their own adult lives and join society, figure out what they're going to do with their lives. But their future depends on how well you prepared them and the education you gave them. And I don't mean to make it all like doomy and scary, but it's really important, that education. And I know some people, I feel like sometimes in the homeschooling community, education is kind of seen as not as important as life and enjoying yourself. And I understand the desire to provide this beautiful education for children, but I also understand that the way our society works, certain expectations need to be met, and I will prepare my children to enter that world of expectations. You know, there's not getting up at noon and deciding when you want to do stuff. You're gonna have to meet deadlines, you're gonna have to work on other people's schedules, you're gonna have to be accountable to yourself, but also the people, if you take a job, your employers, all these things. And this relaxed, do what you want type of mentality, I just don't think is really preparing children for what they will receive in the future. And again, not all kids are going to seek higher education. And I think sometimes in the homeschooling community, higher education isn't seen as a great option. Everyone talks about, you know, trade schools, which I think are really important. And, you know, some people have the opportunity and privilege to go into family businesses, so they don't have to really have certain skills that other people would have to entering that environment. But we have to prepare our children for entering the real world. I feel like sometimes homeschooling bubbles their world, and it sometimes restricts what they learn, what they know, the people that they're around, what they're exposed to. So when they hit the real world, it can be quite shocking. And did we prepare them well enough for that? And I think this is where the problem of the parent gets in the way, that sometimes we're so focused on ourselves and what we want for our children that we forget to see our children as the individuals they are. We're too focused on perpetuating what we want our children to be and believe and think. And like I've said, I really want my kids to critically think about things. And some of the things I see, especially online, is this just nonchalant view of education and the importance of it. That, oh, we just won't do this subject today because I don't feel like it, or we'll never use this in real life, so what's the point of learning it? I think there's a lot more to learning than just using things that are important. I feel like talking about contextual knowledge with children, it's really important to have a general understanding of things, not just the things you're going to use. Like, I think it's great your child learned a handicraft and they can whittle or whatever it is, but who's teaching their kids how to use like Microsoft Office? All the YouTube videos I've watched in the 6-7 years, I've seen one homeschooler mention, oh, we're learning how to use Microsoft Office. Like, that might be a useful skill for a child. Maybe in some situations more useful than whittling. And I know that's just not popular because it's not pretty. It's not what people envision homeschooling to be. I'm not saying you can't whittle, but like, you have to actually have some realistic expectations as well of what they're going to be entering into when they're adults. How many times have we held our children back because of ourselves? Are we the ones holding our kids back from the type of education they need? And again, I think education is something that should not be solely dependent on a parent, because it should be a right to a child to receive an education, because it will ultimately greatly affect their future and their opportunities. And education is something that is very valuable and should be respected and I just want to talk about that because I'm seeing, again, like I said, again and again, this idea that it doesn't work for me as the parent, or I don't want to do it, or it's not exciting. Then you shouldn't be homeschooling. You shouldn't be in charge of your child's education if you can't put the time and the effort and the work it takes to provide them with the best education that's possible for that child. Because ultimately, my child's education is what's important, not what I want or think, it's what's important for them. And I'm completely aware that that might not be me to provide that education. I'm not too proud or too arrogant to say that I might not be the best person to educate my child, whether that be a private school, a public school, tutoring, whatever it might be. If that's the best fit for them, then that's what I should provide, because my job as a parent is to provide that for them, not my synthesized version of what I think education should be, or my belief system, or my agenda. It should be what is best for that child to grow into themselves, to have self-confidence, and to enter this world as a responsible, self-confident, capable human being that hopefully has an understanding and compassion for other people. That is my goal. So I don't believe that homeschooling is the right option for everybody. Every parent, every child, I think every child, again, is unique, and not every child should be homeschooled. Not every parent should homeschool. And I know that's kind of controversial, that how can you say that? I firmly believe that education is a right, and if a child doesn't have access to that right, you're affecting that child's well-being, social emotional growth, and future opportunities. And it bothers me that I keep seeing this, someone commented in a previous video, this race to ease, that it's all about making homeschooling easy or fit into our schedule. But that's not the point. It's not meant to be easy. It's not meant to be quick. Homeschooling takes time, it takes effort, it takes intention. And if you can't do those things, you really need to question, is this the right path for your child? So those are my thoughts on kind of where I fall on this idea of, are we the parents? Are we the problem? Because I do check myself sometimes after watching those videos. I started looking back and I'm like, how many times in my update videos am I saying I? How many times am I focused on myself opposed to my child's education? And it happened recently where I was looking at this curriculum and I was like, oh, this seems like a really cool idea. I'd love to implement it. But we already have something that's working for that. We already have things lined up that are working great for my child. So I don't need to add in this extra thing just because I want to use it, just because I think it'll be interesting. It's okay not to do that. It's okay not to change everything because you want something different. If it's working for your child, that's the important thing. I think we need to take ourselves more out of I think we need to remove ourselves and the importance of us in the equation of their education. Now, I do believe, things like mental health, self-care, those things definitely need to be taken into account. But when it comes to your child's education, I think we need to back off and be really mindful and intentional about our own biases and agendas going into these curriculum, and really think, are we teaching to the whole child, or are we teaching to the child we perceive or want to have? So if you have any comments, love to hear them down below. As always, thanks for watching.